Hey, this is Dave, and I'm here today to talk about my first 50 days on the carnivore diet. Um, there are going to be three areas that we're going to be looking at. First is the benefits that I have received or gained from the going on the carnivore diet. Second is the foods that I'm eating on my carnivore diet, and the third item is how I have physically changed while doing the carnivore diet. Before I get started, let me give you a little bit of background about who I am and what I'm doing. If you watched my first video, I gave you a little bit of background at that point. I am a 57-year-old guy who is trying to get back into shape, lose a whole bunch of weight, and then hike the Appalachian Trail. I've been preparing for it physically, gaining gear as I've gone, as well as using the carnivore diet to drop a whole bunch of weight. So where am I on my carnivore diet? It's been 54 days and I've lost about 21 pounds in total. But let me kind of dissect that a little bit. The first 30 days I lost 12 pounds. And then I went to Cancun on a missions trip. I had mentioned that in my previous video. And I did not go carnivore out of respect for the people who were feeding me on that trip. And then when I've come back, I've been on the carnivore diet for 24 days and have dropped another 9 pounds in those 24 days. The carnivore diet is going to be my mainstay while I am on the Appalachian Trail. At least that's my hopes, to stay as carnivore as I can. So right now, being about 7 months before I hit the trail, I am learning as much as I can about the carnivore diet. So as far as my plans go, it will be carnivore. But let's get into the three areas that I'm looking mostly at in this video, and to see if the carnivore diet is working for me. As you know, I've already lost some weight, which is good on the beginning of any diet. But the biggest worry for me isn't so much the whether I'm losing weight or not. It is becoming a healthier person. I've had 3 episodes of blood clots in my legs, and 2 of those went up into my lung. One of them, it was called a pulmonary embolism, where the blood clot went into my lung and kind of burst and left little clots in all 5 of my lung lobes. And then the second time I had what's called a pulmonary infarct. It's kind of a goofy word, but what that means is the embolism went into my lung and landed deep in the lobe, kind of the lower lobe on this side, and kind of basically killed everything beyond where the capillaries had taken it to. So with that said, I have to look at the carnivore diet as a way to help me regain some health from the inside out while I'm trying to lose weight, because it's really hard to hike 2,000 plus miles when you're 80 to 90 pounds overweight. So what benefits have I gained from the carnivore diet? I'm going to actually read off a list because it's a lot easier. It's a very extensive list, and I, of course, haven't memorized it. I've lived it, haven't memorized it. So the first thing is I have no more snoring. That happens fairly quickly if you've seen any of the other carnivore beginner videos. A lot of people report that they stop snoring within a week, 2 to 3 days, upwards to a week, and they equate that to losing inflammation from kind of your whole system, especially your congestion, as far as nasal congestion, is what I've experienced, where I can breathe easier, much easier at night, and I don't snore. And the only caveat to that is, as I'm still heavy, kind of heavy in the chest, when I lay on my back, then I have a tendency to snore, which hasn't changed with the carnivore diet. But what has changed is I sleep more deeply, and I don't snore when I'm on either side or my stomach, which is my preferred way of sleeping anyhow. I'm going to have to keep an eye on that because I would like to be able to lay on my back without snoring. I don't know if that's a weight thing as far as kind of the compression on my chest going down into kind of constricting my airways. Another benefit that I have is, like I said, I've lost 24 pounds. I'm averaging about 1/3 of a pound a day. In total, I've lost 31 pounds since I started what I'll call dirty keto, where I started on an intermittent fasting and a kind of loose keto diet where I eliminated a lot of the processed foods, and I drew my carbohydrates down to probably 20 to 30 grams a day. I didn't really keep track. I just didn't really eat a lot of carbohydrates, and that helped, but I wasn't really experiencing the quicker weight loss that I was looking towards or looking to get. So with that said, somewhere along the line I stumbled into the carnivore diet. It was probably Dr. Berry. I'm going to try to give credit where credit is due. Dr. Ken Berry was a guy that I had followed earlier as far as the keto, and now I started following him as far as the carnivore. Also, I found Dr. Anthony Chafee. So he really kind of simplified it for me as far as that goes. I watched the Jordan Peterson stuff. I've watched Michaela Peterson and her transformation as well. Stumbled upon Kelly Hogan, which if you don't know Kelly Hogan, she does an excellent job at teaching the carnivore diet, and she also, I say she kind of specializes in helping women with, I'll call it women's health issues. So she's a good resource as well. And then, of course, I found Kerry from Homestead House, so I'm giving a shout out to him as well. He kind of brought it to my attention from the standpoint of any guy can do it, and he's proof of that. So I respect him for that. With that said, we're going to move on to the next benefit that I have. And this is kind of twofold. My skin is clearing up. I've had splotches of redness on my skin, under my arms, as well as skin tags. And what I'm finding is the skin tags are shrinking. They're not going away per se, but they're shrinking. My skin is clearing up. I don't have as dry and patchy of a skin that I had before I started. And I do notice this when I do eliminate carbs or reduce carbs. I noticed in the past that my skin would start to look better. As far as getting rid of the skin tags, my understanding is it is more my insulin resistance from most likely being pre-diabetic, and of course that's me kind of self-diagnosing, being overweight, having the sluggishness and the cravings that I had, really, I think upset my health. And I guess what I'm trying to say is I have these skin tags, and I think over time they'll start dropping off, as I've heard other people mention before. So that's a tale to tell, maybe in a future video. The other thing that I want to say about the hyperinsulemia is I had a I did have a patch of skin on my elbow, and that's totally cleared up, and that happened fairly quickly. And I think what happens, and this is conjecture and anecdote on my part, is I think your body starts to clear up things from, you know, from the most recent backwards, and I don't have any medical history on that, but or medical definition on that, but that's what I'm going to go with today. So the next benefit is I have, ever since my blood clots, I've had edema in my legs, and which, if you don't know, that's basically inflammation or swelling in your legs where you're having difficulty clearing them out with the circulation. And with the carnivore diet, I have certainly cleared that up for the most part. It did come back when I was in Cancun, and now I check it regularly. I think because of my blood clots, I don't have great circulation in my legs at this point. Hopefully that will continue to improve as I lose weight. It'll just get easier for circulation when the legs are less tight, is my guess. Others can comment on that, but I do know that right now the inflammation is down. I check it every day, just like I check my weight every day, and like I said, I'm losing about 1/3 a pound, so everything seems to be working right now. Our next benefit is my clothes are fitting better. My clothes are fitting better, and I'm down from a 38-inch waist to a 36-inch waist. And you might not think that that's a big deal. However, the 38-inch waist was really wishful thinking on my part. My belly hangs over quite a bit, and so that 38-inch waist was most likely a 40 or 42 to fit comfortably, but I really had to cinch down that waist. Now I'm in a 36, and so we'll see how that goes. But the 36 fits very comfortably on me, so that's a big deal. My shirts are fitting looser. I don't have a very distended abdomen right now. So as far as the clothing is starting to fit better. So we'll go with that. Let's look at our next benefit. A couple big ones that I have. I don't have any cravings anymore. I don't crave sugar. I don't crave Diet Coke. I have had 2 small Diet Cokes in that 54-hour or 54-day of carnivore. However, that was on 2 nights where I was up all night because I couldn't sleep for one reason or another, and then had to go to work, and I just broke down and got myself a Diet Coke. But I don't crave it, and I went right back to drinking seltzer water and water. And so if you look at it from the grand scale, for 40 years I've been drinking Diet Coke, and now I don't crave it, which to me is a huge deal. And hopefully I don't ever crave it, and that's a big win for me. As far as the sugar, I was Cookie Monster. I would go to McDonald's every day to get a Diet Coke and some sort of bad for me food. And then I would also sometimes go get a Diet Coke at McDonald's. And then I'd drive over to Dunkin' Donuts and get a donut or 2 or 3 or 4 once. But then maybe a muffin and a donut 2 or 3. But do you see where I'm going? It was just a big food addiction. And then throughout work, I never prepared food, and I would come home kind of sluggish, and I would eat whatever my wife was giving me for dinner, and she's a very healthy person, so I would eat that, and then of course I would have cravings and most likely have something later before going to bed. So that's down, and that's a huge win for me. And I really enjoy the fact that eating carnivore, I eat less volume of different types of food, um, and less frequently. I eat roughly noon, 10:30, 12 o'clock to 12 o'clock, somewhere in there. I'll start by having lunch, and then I don't eat again until dinner. And I'm usually not that hungry. I'll drink some water, and some electrolytes as far as some salts in order to curb that hunger, because I'm not really hungry. So I'll come home, I'll make some dinner, I'll uh, barbecue some, not barbecue, what is it? I'll grill some steaks, and that's preparing me for the next meal, the next day. So that's been really good. Let's look at the next one on the list. So as far as as far as the next one, because of the way that I'm eating, um, my grocery bills are down. I am averaging about $7.50 a day on food, and to me, that's huge because I'm guessing I was probably averaging closer to $20 a day. So my bills are down because I'm eating, my steak and my burgers and whatnot, burger patties and whatnot. And I have no leftovers. I have no bills from McDonald's or Dunkin' Donuts with the inflated prices, compared to going to the grocery store. So that's down. The last thing is it's kind of a goofy thing, but as a physical therapist, I have had to train somebody on how to get their socks and shoes on after they became obese. And for me, it got to the point where I would have to sit on my bed, I would put my foot up, and I would have to crisscross my leg and then lean forward, reach forward, and put my sock on. Now I'm able to stand up, lift my foot up, and put my socks and shoes on without losing my balance, without having my belly get in the way. And I think for me, that's one of those non-scale victories, that goes towards health. To go along with that, last summer I was in a state where my right knee, I could not squat down on my right knee, and I did not have any physical therapy. I just left it alone. I went hiking and I did all sorts of, all my other stuff, and never really treated it. And now, after doing carnivore, after the first 30 days, I was able to do a deep squat on my right knee. And what does that matter really? Well, it matters to me because I'm going to spend 150 to 180 days out in the woods, and I'm going to have to do some squatting probably once a day, if you get what I'm saying. And so being able to hold that position is going to be important for me. And I don't want to squat down and then not be able to get back up, or have knee pain after I get back up and then try to hike 15 or 20 miles. So that's a big deal. If anybody else is experiencing joint pain, joint ligament muscle pain, I truly believe that a good portion of that will go away without treatment, but the only treatment would be the carnivore diet, or eliminating the inflammatory foods in your diet. So with that said, what is it that I'm going to eat? And what is it that I'm eating now? What am I going to eat on the trail? I haven't quite figured that out yet, but this is what I'm eating now. So I'm going to look at my paper again. Hope you don't mind. Steak. Steak is my mainstay. That is the number one food that I've eaten every day, at least once. I generally eat anywhere from a pound to a pound and a half of steak at each meal. But what I'm finding is, I think because of my insulin resistance, that I'm going through a little gluconeogenesis. That word gets thrown around, quite often. And all that means is I'm turning my steak into sugar that's going into my bloodstream, that as it gets eradicated out of my blood by my insulin, my blood sugar is dropping. And I'm noticing that I'm waking up in the middle of the night a little hungry, and I think that might be it. Again, I'm not an expert, I'm not a dietitian or a nutritionist, but watching enough videos from doctors who are hopefully giving me the right information, I think that's what I'm experiencing. So I'm actually dropping down my meat, beef, all my animal foods down, and I'm as far as proteins, and I'm increasing my fat as of the last couple days. So I'm gonna see where that goes and see if doing that halts my weight loss, if it makes me feel better, it makes me sleep deeper. I want to see the effects of that. And that's something that I'm learning from Kelly Hogan. She just had an episode with an endocrinologist. I can't remember her name. And they talked a lot about bumping up your fat because Kelly was talking mostly, from my understanding, towards women and women's health issues. I don't know if that's going to work for me, but we'll see what happens, because I feel like I can make adjustments without losing the whole aspect of the carnivore diet as far as the zero carb intake, and then kind of learn over time to see if it's going to work for me, see if it's going to work for somebody else. Other thing I'm eating as far as beef is hamburger. I'm eating a lot of hamburger patties. I don't quite like them on day 2, but if I take them off the grill, they're nice and juicy. If I make them go through the fridge and then have them for lunch the next day, not really a big fan. They kind of dry out a little bit, so I don't really like that. I do eat chicken. I do eat shrimp, salmon. What else have I had? I've had, let's see. Oh, I've eaten processed meats. Um, the processed meats that I'm eating would be kielbasa, sausage, pepperoni. Um, I've also had processed cheese a little bit as far as cheese sticks on, and these are all geared towards going on a hike. The kielbasa I ate as a big giant meal and in and of itself, and that was delicious. But I do want to curb those. I know that there can be sugar in that, and I've tried to be careful as far as getting the no sugar, versions. But I still feel like that is something from a health standpoint that I need to curb or keep out of my diet. I'm also eating lots of eggs. I generally will make an omelet of upwards to 6 eggs, although I'm starting to decrease that again, dropping my protein a little, going to add more butter to it. Butter is my fat of choice right now. I'm not a big fan of putting this, like steak drippings or bacon grease and saving it and then adding it back in. What I do with my bacon grease is, if there's bacon grease, pour it right over the bacon and just let it sit there and congeal. And then if I'm going to be using that for lunch, I'll just put that in and then heat it up and then drink it if I have to at the end. But I'm not really saving grease at this point. I am learning how to make beef jerky, which is an eye-opener. I didn't realize how easy it was to make that, because I'm putting it in our air fryer for about 4 hours. I'm buying eye of round, pre-sliced, a pound of it, and then I go home, I cut it off the extra fat, I slice it up, I season it with salt and pepper, which I'll talk about the pepper in a minute, but as far as salt and pepper, and usually over salt it, because I'm taking this on a hike with me, and that helps me to replenish electrolytes instead of putting as much electrolyte in my water when I go hiking. So that helps. And I like it in that form. I like my electrolytes as part of the food. I think it makes it tasty. And finally, as far as my foods, I am making, or I'm eating pork rinds or pork cracklins, um, which is about 65 to 70% fat. It was kind of a godsend because I found that I have no crunch when I'm eating on a carnivore diet. So I bought a bag from the grocery store, just a little one person bag, one serving bag. Maybe it's two servings because of the high caloric content. Um, and it only cost $1.25. So I felt like that was a great deal. It only had the pork, the skin, and some salt. So that was a huge deal. That for me was excellent. So kudos to whoever made whoever makes pork rinds. I'm gonna have to probably try to learn how to make them or cracklins myself. But again, that's another time. So the final thing that I want to talk about is how has my endurance or my physical ability changed? Because it's really important for me to lose the weight, but gain some endurance, gain some strength, and be able to tolerate what I'm going to endure next March on the Appalachian Trail. So what I found is I have gained some speed on a trail. There's a trail on what's called Gunstock ski area, and it's about a 1.5 mile trail. I dropped in 2.5 months with about a 20-pound weight loss, 15-pound weight loss. I've dropped about 7 minutes from bottom to top on the time that it takes to get to the top, and that for me is pretty big because that's telling me that my endurance and cardiovascular system is getting better while I do that. The other thing is I hadn't hiked a 4,000 footer. I'm in New Hampshire. I haven't hiked a 4,000 footer in probably 5-6 months when I attempted to go up Zealand Summit in the spring, which a little side story with that, I had to hike in 3 miles on the dirt road before I even got to the trail, another 3 miles to the hut, up, continue to get up towards, the summit, went across the ridge. I was so pooped. It was late winter, so there was still a foot of snow, 2 feet of snow up, and I pooped out. At the time, I was my most recent heaviest at 234, and that I pooped out. So coming back to this one, I hiked Mount Garfield, and Garfield is one of the easier 4,000 footers in New Hampshire. It is, however, a 10 miler, so it's 5 miles out, 5 miles back, and I felt good. I didn't feel great, but I felt good going up. My heart rate got up pretty high in some spots. But I was able to do that somewhat fasted because I didn't eat. I woke up at 5 in the morning. I didn't really eat until about 10 in the morning when I was up on the trail. And I ate all carnivore foods. I ate pepperoni stick, cheese, beef jerky, lots of water, lots of salt. And I actually, when I got back to the trailhead after the hike, I had a half a bag of pork rinds to kind of celebrate. So that for me was a win because there was about 3,000 feet of elevation gain and loss, a lot of work on the legs. I felt fairly strong. I felt very strong coming down because I'm the proverbial bowling ball. It's hard to get me up a mountain, but it's easy to get me down. And so that was my viewpoint of thinking, okay, I'm heading in the right direction. So with that said, that's my, all of the benefits, the food, and the endurance changes that I've had since starting 54 days of carnivore. Like I said, kind of split in the middle with a vacation, but then right back at it when I got back. 54 days, I'm doing great. As far as to answer the question, is it still working? Absolutely. And I'm very pleased and very proud to say that I've lost some weight. I'm continuing strong. I hope other people get this. I know this is a fairly long video. I hope people get this, take it in and say, okay, this guy in just such a short time is making some fairly big gains. And I'm speaking to the person who, I'm not necessarily talking to the 25-year-old, although I think you could benefit with the carnivore diet. Who I'm talking to is the 50-year-old who got out of shape raising kids, which is a noble thing. Raise your kids. Got out of shape. We get sedentary. We have dad bods, and now we want to get back to to the fun adventures that we had when we were younger. Not that we didn't have them raising kids. I'm not saying that. But what I am saying is, if you want to get back, you need to start taking steps towards something. I talk about my Appalachian Trail. That is a bucket list item. It was well hidden for years. After the kids, got a little older, I started to do more hiking. I started to do more climbing. I did a lot with them when they were younger, but this was more focused on, peak bagging in New Hampshire and doing a lot of day hikes and backpacking trips and whatnot. And now I'm back at it. Now I have my bucket list going again, and I hope that you see this video and that can inspire you to get back out there and to not let your bucket list die. That's a sad thing, and continue with the adventure. So if you do like this, please like it, share it for other people who might benefit from it, and then subscribe to my channel. That'd be very helpful. This is my second video, and I'm very happy to help serve other people by instructing them and telling them what I've done and what I'm planning to do in the future. And hopefully this helps. Dave out. Bye.